This week we are in my least favorite place in my home, and it's unfortunately the place that both my husband and I spend the majority of our daytime hours. Well, hello friends, I'm Mary Beth with At What Cost, where simple living and deep faith go hand in hand. And we are, of course, in my office. And with the FlyLady experiment kind of update, we're also in the formal dining room and the stairwell. But aside from a really good thorough vacuuming and a ridiculous amount of dusting, we just don't have much to cover in those areas. This week, it's all about the office. Now, the short reason why this is my least favorite space in our house is right there. That's the short version. This. The long story is, this is the place where everyone in my home just kind of floats through every single day. So it collects some of that day-to-day kind of stuff that just tends to flow into our house. The other problem is that this is also where I work full-time, my husband works full-time, I do YouTube things, I do women's Bible study things, all of the things happen in this room, which means all the things get brought into this room, and sometimes I'm not very good at putting them away. So this room is right at the front of our home, and anybody who walks by or drives by can see right into this window and see all of this mess. And I don't always want to keep the blinds closed because I enjoy daylight. And I know it's not supposed to matter, we're not supposed to care what other people think, but every time those thoughts of like, they can see what's in this room and they probably think the rest of my house looks just like this. Even if it doesn't, those thoughts still come into my mind and I have to deal with them and tell myself it doesn't matter what people think, but I'm actually still like dealing with those things and I'm thinking of those things, so it does matter. And then I just wasted a bunch of time thinking about what other people think about my mess. I started to think about this idea of the fantasy self. I know you've probably heard of it, and it's a made-up term, so if my definition is different than your definition, that's how made-up terms go. That's just the nature of them. But this idea of a fantasy self is hanging on to things that you maybe used in a previous life, or they're things that you see and you think to yourself, you know, I would really love to be a quilter someday. I would really love to do all the arts and crafts. I think I'd be really good at painting. And so you hang on to these supplies with the intention that you're going to take up this new hobby, or you're going to hang on to this aspect of yourself that really doesn't apply in this season of life. And we start to just dwell in that place of kind of fantasizing about a life that we could have, or reminiscing just a little too much on a life that we did have. I think the problem in this room is more of a fantasy organizing life. I spend a lot of time thinking about how I would like to organize this space. The problem is, oftentimes, and what's keeping it like this, is that I am putting the cart before the horse, which is a ridiculously funny saying, but I think it really applies here. Now, this is a cliche like many other cliches that we feel like we sort of know the meaning of, but then it can be a little hard to like apply it to our everyday lives and actually gain wisdom from it in a way that's meaningful and promotes change. Now, we have a cart and we have a horse. And although this is a very long-standing cliche, we can still gain a lot of wisdom from this. So let's think first about our horse. Now, this horse is really what drives the whole thing, right? So in this office space, the horse is really the stuff that's in it and how I use it. I need to keep track of my work stuff. I have books that I read for both our channel and my Wednesday night Bible study, and just I don't know that I actually read that's pretty much the only thing I do for reading. And I enjoy it. I have craft supplies, like a really small amount, because that whole fantasy self, like, no. A lot of the crafting I do is around VBS and character parades at school, which means I don't need half of the stuff that I used to have for crafting, and it all went out the door in the great purge of 2020. But I do have a few things left, and so much camera gear, so much camera gear. And of course we have paperwork, because this is our home office, which means we manage our daily household affairs out of here. And like I said, all of the kids stuff comes in here. So we have progress reports and IEPs and just all of the things that come through here that have that kind of household administration management vibe. These are the things that need to dictate what goes into the cart. Now, this is where I have gone wrong, because I have gotten so caught up in wanting to make this space pretty. I got a little bit lost in the Pinterest rabbit hole and the IKEA, I have an idea of what I would like this space to look like when I'm done decluttering, which is ridiculous because, okay, bonus tip, you're never going to be done decluttering. As long as there are things coming into your home, there are always going to be things that need to go out of your home to maintain the balance. So I've had this kind of illusion of an end goal that is somewhat motivating, like, oh, I'll get rid of all of the extra stuff and then I'll be able to make my space pretty. The problem is you can't put like a ridiculous amount of stuff in a really small cart. And if you have a really small amount of stuff, you may not need a cart at all. Like, okay, we're getting a little, one more metaphor and then I'm done, I promise. So while I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do and which cart I'm going to get and how I'm going to get all of these bookcases or shelves or cabinets, the whole host of the Pinterest black hole where, you pin everything and then you never go back and look at any of it. Anybody else do that? Just me? Okay. Over here, I have my horse who isn't actually really being cared for. And, when horses, it just piles up. Yep. If you know, you know. So what's a girl to do when we clearly have a mess to deal with, which unfortunately, because it's all like actual work stuff and my work has a high level of confidentiality, my husband's work has a high level of confidentiality, and there's a lot of like IEPs and like personal, like I'm sorry, I can't show you decluttering this one because there's just too much of it I can't show you, which really stinks. But you know what? These concepts, totally doable across the board, whether it's my stuff or your stuff, you can do this. Now, something that will make a huge impact in this space is if I will clear out all of the trash, which I did because it was trash day and I knew I would have an entire bag of stuff that just needed to go out. Now, it's important to keep in mind that when we do get started decluttering, if you are a piler, because some of us are, the things that you actually use frequently are probably on the top. So be sure to put those in a home or make a home for them. And if there's something in a home for them, then you need to get rid of that. And the things that are a little bit further down in the pile may not actually be all that necessary. Now, if you have not looked at these things in a while, this is the time to really put our adulting pants on and make the hard decision to let things go. Chances are pretty good, if you haven't needed it in the last however many months, you're probably not going to need it now. Now, there are a few exceptions that we see when it comes to home offices. Like I mentioned, we have a lot of very specialized paperwork, and we do have to keep that for different reasons and different lengths of time. that means I need to file some of those things away. And as you're going through these items, you may start to find that a lot of things feel important. The issue is, if everything is important, then nothing is important, because this is why we are simplifying our homes and decluttering to begin with, because there's too much stuff in our spaces. It's feeling overwhelming and we can't find the things that we need when we need them, or your kids plunder. Do your kids plunder? My kids plunder. When they come into these spaces that are cluttered and there are piles of things, I think that they automatically go into like pirate mode. They will draw out treasure maps and they're going to start picking through all my stuff looking for buried treasure, which is a little bit like what we're doing, only the reward is not a pot of gold. It's a nice, clean, relaxing space that has all of the things that we need and not a lot of the rest. So once we have all of the trash out and we're down to just the things that we actually need, we have a better understanding of what we will actually need to store, how we can store those things, and oftentimes we don't really need a whole lot of extra things at all. The same is true for me. Does it have a home? Do I need to make it a home? Or is it time to let go? So let me give you my FlyLady system update, because y'all, it's quick. I didn't do much of anything. In fact, I did nearly nothing. But in my defense, I just had one of those weeks where, even though we are typically pretty busy, because let me tell you, we're pretty busy at this house, just transitioning back into what feels a little bit more like normal life really just kind of overwhelmed me this week. So I am truly enjoying the flexibility of the FlyLady system, because in times like this, I would have just thrown in the towel and said, forget it, this system doesn't work for me. But that's not the case, because I still have some weekly tasks that I have been doing and my daily tasks that I have been doing, which I have not yet talked about, but we'll work those in at some point. So what I'll be doing this weekend is just picking out the absolute most essential tasks and doing those in one big burst as quickly as I possibly can. And then I'm gonna move on and it's gonna be okay, because that zone is coming back around again and I can pick up all of those tasks again. If you would like to see the other videos in this series, you can click the link right up here. And if you want to get started on your simplifying journey, you can click the link right over here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.